What's the most wholesome experience you've had with a stranger? My car declined at a fast food place a couple years ago. The manager saw it happening and came up and gave me the food anyway. It may have come from a "f this establishment" mood rather than the unrelenting kindness of his heart, but either way it really made my day. I had a knock on my door and when I opened it, there was a stranger with a gift card to a local garden store for me. Apparently her kid had been pinching tulips from my garden every day to give to his mom and they wanted to pay for them. Once they figured out whose garden they were coming from, I had thought squirrels were doing it and had regretted planting them the year before, not being able to enjoy them. I spent the gift card on more bulbs. I was using crutches at the time after an ankle injury. Got off the tram to go to uni and hobbled straight into a surprise Melbourne spring storm. Guy with very limited English walked me from the tram stop to my class, holding an umbrella over me the entire walk. About 10 minutes. One of those lovely, warm fuzzy memories. When I was 18 I had a friend in the hospital with brain cancer. His time was limited. I visited him when I could. He was kind of hippie alternative punk. I wore a leather jacket and had long hair. I walked to his room. A nurse saw me. Without saying a word she walked to me and gave me a long comforting hug. That's how I knew he passed. That's a very sweet and gentle way of telling someone about another person's passing. It was exactly what I needed. I was really drunk and started puking in the trash can in the women's bathroom since there was a line to get to a toilet. One of the girls in line held my hair up and rubbed my back, telling me I'd be okay. I drunkenly told her I loved her. I may also have been crying. Wherever you are, bathroom girl, I still love you. Bathrooms are the place we take care of each other always lololol. I have been diagnosed with PTSD, depression, and anxiety and I was at the pharmacy trying to get my meds filled but my card kept declining. A couple of the meds have major side effects if I skip a dose so I really couldn't go without them. I was frantic and trying to figure out what was wrong with my card when another lady smiled and swiped her card for me so I could get my medication refilled. I'm a wheelchair user. At a baseball game, a little girl came running up to me and climbed onto my lap. Her mom was apologetic but I told her it was fine. No worries. Looking at the girl's face, I could tell she had some kind of developmental disability. Mom explained to me that the little girl's grandfather used a wheelchair and she missed him. I rolled around a little to give her a ride. She giggled and had a good time. Then she climbed off and went back to her mom. Seems to me like her mom would also describe this as the most wholesome experience she's had with a stranger. On my honeymoon in Greece we nearly got stranded driving our little scooter back from a day trip. Finally found a petrol station in this village but it was during afternoon nap siesta time. We apologized as best we could in the little Greek we knew. The guy obliged but looked a little annoyed. He casually asks where we are from and we tell him New Zealand. His face lights up and is amazed because he had never met someone from NZ before. He asks us what are we doing so far away from home. We tell him that it's our honeymoon. He tells us to wait there and comes back with a bottle of wine that's obviously worth more than the €6 of petrol we are buying. He refuses for us to round up the bill or for us to buy anything. He just tells us honeymoon is honeymoon, be happy, go. Hands down one of the best highlights of our trip. Happened 2 weeks ago. I was sitting in my car at a red light and this little girl and her dad crossed the street. She was on rollerblades and waved everyone. Apparently I was the only one who waved back and she and her father got super happy. I always wave at kids when they wave at me, even if I'm in a bad mood. It really makes their day and seem super happy. There was one year where I was in Spain on holiday with my family. We were staying in an apartment complex that had crane machines to win soft toys and prizes. So one day my sister and I are downstairs playing on the machines but we didn't manage to win anything and ran out of money and a man who was sweeping and mopping the floors comes over and unlocks the machine and hands us both a Winnie the Pooh toy. Was one of the nicest things someone's done and I still remember it 20 years later. My boyfriend and I were walking down the street. He picked a wildflower from the wall and presented it to me. I was of course delighted with the gesture and kissed him. A woman in her car saw the whole interaction and beeped her horn and gave us a thumbs up. It was such a cute moment and I still think about her random support. I gave a kid a Coca-Cola and turns out he was an immigrant from South Mexico. The bad part, and he got his mom and dad to thank me for it and we became friends for a little while. When I was pregnant, I was married to an abusive husband. I was shopping at Walmart one day and was just tired mentally and physically. The cashier rang up my purchases and then said, "You know what? I'm going to close my line and help you to your car with your groceries." I cried and I have never forgotten her. On a side note, no one was in line behind me and yes, I left my husband when my child was 7. Okay, so this didn't happen directly to me, but it's something I witnessed. So I was on the bus one day, and there were these two kiddos sitting next to each other, a boy and a girl. I'd say maybe 5 or 6 years old. At some point the little girl goes, "Sorry, can I touch your hair?" And the boy, he has messy red hair BTW, nods, so she just kinda pets his head and then goes, "Thanks for letting me touch your hair," and he goes, "Oh, welcome." I just thought that was wholesome AF. This 3-year-old girl from my building asked me to raise her inside the elevator so that she could press the button of her floor. Why don't we just wait for you to grow? That's so adorable. Oh man, I'm late to the party, but I was once seated on a plane next to an older guy who was blind. We ended up chatting and I read to him from the novel I was reading, which he responded to by saying the best part about being blind is that strangers will read to you. He also recited a poem he had written. It was a very pleasant flight. I was just getting into running, a chubby girl around a small city. On my way up a particularly steep hill I see another girl on her way down. She raised her hand for a high five, and we did it. We high five as we passed. I never saw her again, but I think about that high five fondly. In the winter this old guy is crossing the street and ends up slipping and falling on the ice. Me and another guy ran over to help him to his feet and made sure he got across safely. The other guy was a pizza delivery man. So basically first time in New York, and in the US, waiting for a green light to cross the road. The stranger turns to me and says, "Hey, how are you?" "Fine. You?" I ask. "Pretty good," he answers. Then the light turns green. "Have a nice day," he says, turns into opposite direction and goes away. I mean, the guy was just standing there to wish me a nice day. Maybe a common thing for NY, but a strange and wholesome experience for an Eastern European. This happened 10 years ago. When I was in college I walked into the city and stopped by a bakery. I tried to buy a pastry and hot coffee. Cost around $5. My cards were declined. I had no cash. I was so broke. Some old lady behind me stepped forward and bought my coffee and pastry for me. It was the nicest thing I've had a stranger do for me. Now I try to pay it forward. I used to be terrified of flying. I had to be drunk and on Valium. I flew when I was 6 days sober. I had no clue how I was going to make it through the flight. I was seated next to an off-duty pilot. He spent the entire flight explaining to me what the noises were. I love flying now because of this. I remember some homeless lady making me promise that I would graduate. She made me promise. When I graduated, she was the first person I thought of. When I worked retail, a girl and her mom came in and the girl wanted to buy some candy. The girl put it up on the counter, and I asked if she had it. She looked at her mom and looked back at me. "You know, to buy this, you can't be older than 10. I'm 8, she exclaimed. I met a kind stranger on Reddit when I talked about my blood family not using my name and pronouns, and they said, "Yo bro, message me, let's talk," and they've kinda adopted me. Seems like you're now part of their family, because family, once you can think for yourself, is a matter of choice, not blood. I was at mile 18 of a 20-mile training run, had just run up a hill in a park, was sore, tired, and flagging. Just then this little girl about 3-4 years old said, "Wow mommy, that man is running so fast." I smiled and found the energy to finish the run. Random man saved my life after I was stabbed 4 times while getting robbed. He put pressure on the wounds and called the ambulance. Turns out we really have a lot in common. I'm actually meeting him for coffee today. How was your coffee meetup? Good, he was a very nice guy and I think we're finna be bros. I had been given some bad news on the phone and had started to cry while on a train journey, and the man opposite me offered me some sweets, and that little effort made me feel so much better. Asked a stranger where the stairs were, ended up marrying her. Exactly 3 years ago today, a couple in a car saw me struggling on my bicycle with 20 moving boxes I just purchased. They packed them in their car, and after I gave them my address, they brought them straight over. I was walking home from school about 4 years ago. I'm 20 now, and this little girl stopped me in the street, looked up at me and said, "You're a princess," and handed me a bunch of rose petals. Why is it that little kids can give the most meaningful compliments? I was working in a shopping center, and an old lady saw me and said, "You look like you could use something to pick you up. I'm going to buy you a chocolate." A while later, she came back with chocolate bar. It was really lovely. I'm a cashier, and on Valentine's Day a little girl gave me a small piece of paper with a blowheart on it that says "You are loved."